The great debates in Black American history have essentially been over strategy and mask. The black talented 10th of the late 19th century, the first significant black middle class, believed that identifying with white America, subscribing to the norms of middle-class life, identifying with the American dream, practicing piety, and carrying a little contempt for the unwashed black masses would be the best strategy for getting ahead. To this end, they presented themselves essentially as colored versions of middle-class whites. Their reading was that whites would see how alike they were and be shamed into granting them full equality. It was a terrible misreading, since white America was retrenching along racial lines, not opening up. So here was a mask that did not work very well. It was Booker T. Washington who had a more accurate reading of whites. He saw that whites simply would not tolerate racial equality or even much protest toward that end. So he advocated development rather than equality, and he favored a mask that showed blacks as humble, hard-working, and accommodating of segregation. Washington's great nemesis, W.E.B. Du Bois, wanted the opposite, a mask of protest. Later, in the great civil rights era, we wanted to be the face of universal humanity. We wanted our race to be incidental. If whites could see our humanity, they would be morally compelled to offer us full equality. This argument and mask worked so well that it led to a new era of white guilt in which whites, particularly institutions, had to redeem their moral authority through blacks. And so today, continuing to read white America as we always have, we wear a mask focused on our racial difference rather than our common humanity. White American institutions do not want our humanity per se. They want our race today because it helps them build the diversity that fends off the perception that they are racist. Therefore, to live as a black American means that you belong to a group that continually reinvents itself in relation to a dominant group. It means that we blacks tend to know ourselves collectively through our strategic relations to whites. One of the most profound problems in black American life is that our strategic masks, the faces we put on to seek advantage through white America, invariably become our racial identity. In other words, we come to think of ourselves as our mask. Certainly there is an enduring black American culture apart from masking, but within a given era, the collective masks too often define our identity. A few years back, a white journalist told me that he had recently interviewed a well-to-do black doctor on the subject of racial profiling. This doctor drove a Mercedes, lived in an upscale, largely white suburb of a large Midwestern city, and was rightfully proud of how far he had come from his inner-city beginnings. The doctor told the journalist that he had been stopped by the police while driving in his own neighborhood at least 20 times, simply because he was a black in an expensive car in a largely white neighborhood. The white journalist asked me what I thought about this, and I said that I believed the doctor was lying. The journalist was aghast. The doctor, he said, had seemed perfectly sincere. I am sure that he was sincere. I am also sure that he was lying. It is not plausible that this perfectly dignified black doctor was stopped 20 times in his own neighborhood simply for being black and in an expensive car. Maybe one time or 2 times, or maybe not at all. But 20 times defies reason. Surely in today's environment, and in an upscale suburb, more than one such stop of the same wealthy black man would bring the local police department under threat of a lawsuit. And wouldn't the local papers love the story of the good Dr. So-and-so being stopped 20 times solely because of his race? I can imagine a huge financial settlement and mandatory diversity training for the entire police department. So yes, the doctor was not being truthful, and yet he was being consistent with his idea of himself. Today, racial victimization is the face we blacks want broader America to see because it entitles blacks and obligates whites. This is our strategic mask, and so we make it our identity. We say of ourselves that, no matter how high we climb or how much we play by the rules, we can still be victimized and harassed because of our race. This is who we are, and it is delusional for us to think otherwise. So when the good doctor says 20 times, he is speaking the poetic truth of his black identity. It may register with him very slightly that 20 times is an exaggeration, but he is comfortable in the feeling that he is speaking a more accurate truth than the facts would allow. Does Barack Obama wear a mask? To be black in America, to self-consciously pursue a black identity as Obama does, one must join a strategy toward America, a politics that tries to manipulate the American mainstream. This requires a mask, a face that will help the group in its manipulation. And this mask must be built around the group's best case for itself. A truly good mask will try to make the poetic truth, the doctor's 20 times, pass for the literal truth. It will show white America a 20 times black world and demand redress accordingly. When Obama joins Trinity United Church of Christ on the South Side, with its monochrome focus on blackness, the main theme of the black mask is spelled out for him. He must think and act in the world as if the exaggerated poetic truth of white racism is the literal truth. His minister lectures him that only race, and not social class, matters for blacks. Cops don't check my bank account when they pull me over and make me spread eagle against the car, he tells Barack. Life's not safe for a black man in this country, Barack. Never has been, probably never will be. Especially offensive to the minister is William Julius Wilson's well-known book, The Declining Significance of Race. Now, what country is he living in? He asks. Racism is this minister's great strategic advantage. It gives him an almost demagogic power and a racial moral authority that distinguishes his church from his competitors. He offers his parishioners as much racial redemption as religious redemption, and if race is now of declining significance, then so is he. So effectively, he defines the black identity as a faith in the pervasiveness of white racism. He is blackest who believes most strongly in white racism. This is his implicit lesson for Obama. Barack's wife, Michelle, wore this mask well in their 60 Minutes interview. Barack is black. He can be shot on the way to the gas station. Here, fitting her mask snugly over her face, she offers poetic truth as literal truth. Before the popularity of Obama's presidential candidacy, he is now justifiably under Secret Service protection, he was at virtually no risk of being shot by a white racist on the way to the gas station. However, he might well have been at risk of violence from a young black gangbanger. But the blackness mask does not allow for such distinctions, or wants them blurred. It does not matter that reality in no way supports Michelle's point.